I'm going to tell you the story of the babies I lost. There's a quote I love. I carried you for every moment of your life, and I'll love you for every moment of mine. Here's my story. One warm night in September 2020, at about 11 p.m, I was lying in bed, feeling just slightly off. I'd moved back to the UK from Norway 2 weeks before, feeling just utterly deflated. COVID-19 had scuppered my chances of finding a job there. My visa had ran out and I'd returned to the UK as soon as the airports had reopened, basically. So I got out of bed, and for the third time in the last few months, I opened a pregnancy test. I'd already taken a test a few weeks before, negative, and a few weeks before that, negative. I really didn't know what my monthly cycle was doing, but I always took a test if I missed a cycle just in case, but they were all negative. Bleary-eyed, I peed on it and put it back in the wrapper, brushed my teeth, washed my face, got into bed, put Stranger Things on the TV, and then a few minutes in I remembered the test. Begrudgingly, I got out of bed, went back to the bathroom, pulled the test out of the packet, and my world just turned upside down. 2 lines, 2 dark lines. We had planned on trying for a baby, but COVID had just kind of put life on hold. I felt sick to my stomach seeing them lines. My partner was in Norway still. I was alone in the spare room at my parents' house. I wanted this, but I was just totally unprepared in that moment for a positive test. I called my partner immediately, just panicking. I didn't have a job yet. I had 4 or 5 interviews lined up in the next month. My partner was in Norway, but I wanted a baby. I had always wanted a baby. And here we were. I snuck into my mum and dad's room for like the first time in 20 years and woke up my mum. We talked through it and she helped me calm down, and I'll be honest, I didn't sleep that night. All I could think about was how scared and excited I was just all at once. I booked myself a private scan for as soon as I could get in a couple of days' time. I needed to know. I couldn't understand why the other tests I'd taken were negative. After looking at the larger multi-box, it turns out they were out of date. So check the back of your tests. Me and my partner talked for a long time on the phone. He was going to book the soonest flight he could. This baby was something we wanted, just a little sooner than expected, but we wanted them. We wanted a little family of our own. It's not fashionable nowadays to admit that, but it's always been a dream of mine to have children. So my dream was coming true, even if it felt a little bit scary. When it came to the day of the scan, my mum came with me. I told the sonographer the dates of my last cycle and she started scanning me. I wanted to see my little blob of a baby so badly. See their little heart flickering on the screen. I had spent the last 2 days Googling 11 to 12 week pregnancy details. I sat there anxiously waiting for her to show me, but it was taking too long. She looked too serious. She wasn't saying much. And I just knew there was something wrong. I should have been 11 weeks pregnant. The sac that holds the baby was the right size, but the baby was too small and there was no heartbeat detectable. I just couldn't believe it. She said I should book another scan right away at the early pregnancy unit, but she warned me it looked like a loss. She really didn't sugarcoat it, but it felt like I'd just been stabbed in the chest. That's when the memory of my first miscarriage that I'd pushed somewhere deep and dark inside me just flooded me, drowned me. It was a few years before that with someone else. I was working at a hospital at the time. It was a busy day on the ward, and mid-morning I'd seen a few patients, was sat at the nurse's station. I stood up and I discovered I'd bled through my trousers onto the chair. I rushed to the staff bathroom as quick as I could. When I got there, I checked my underwear, and the shock of the blood resulted in me passing out. I mean, I've never been good with blood, and I've passed out more times than I can count from it, honestly. That could be its own story time, but the door to the toilet was unlocked, and another member of staff had luckily heard me fall. So when I came round, I had a circle of doctors and nurses around me, my colleagues. It was really embarrassing. But I mean, if I was going to pass out, that was probably the best place to do it. They wheeled me off to the emergency area while I was vomiting into a sick bowl. There, I found out I was losing a pregnancy I didn't even know I'd had. My partner at the time didn't want a children or married, or if he did, he certainly didn't want them with me. He asked me if I was physically going to be okay, but that was the extent of it. When a few weeks later I was struggling, I asked to talk to him about it. I wasn't handling the loss very well. He told me that he wasn't the right person to talk to, and we never spoke about it again. Thankfully, that relationship ended, but I dealt with the pain of that loss alone. I didn't tell anyone about that pregnancy for a long long time. So by the time I walked out of the clinic door after that scan, I felt numb. I'd only just found out I was pregnant. My dreams were meant to be coming true. I'd imagined their little toes and smiles, their first steps, how it would feel to hold my baby in my arms. I'd imagined my partner as a daddy, proud and loving. I'd been dreaming of a baby, that future, my entire life. But I only got to live in that joyful anticipation, that hope for under 48 hours. And now, had this little baby died before they were even given a chance in this world, had I been carrying them around for weeks, a little secret even to me, only to find out they might have already left me. When I got home, I could be alone, and I just cried and cried and cried. Then when I told my partner, I just cried some more. They booked me for another scan in 5 days. 5 days. How the hell was I going to wait 5 days to know if there was a chance that this baby would live? Well, I didn't have to wait. The next day, I went to the bathroom and there was blood. Crimson red, sat there in my underwear. This baby was lost to us. I knew it then. I had cramps for the rest of the afternoon, into the evening. I don't think I even ate. I just cried in bed. By 8 p.m, the bleeding took a turn for the worse and the cramping was really intensifying. I was just exhausted and heartbroken at this point. I didn't care about anything. All I kept doing was imagining how different my life was meant to be because of this baby. I had 2 sanitary towels on and they soaked through in a few hours. I changed them and just went to sit in the armchair in the kitchen with the light off. I put a towel down just in case and just sat breathing through the pain as the cramps rolled in. My brother had come downstairs and sat in the chair next to me to chat with me. Apparently I didn't look very well, as he asked if we should call 111, which is the non-emergency medical help number in the UK. I said no, I didn't want to be poked and prodded. I just wanted to be left to my grief and for this bleeding to be over. I felt dizzy and confused and tired. I stood up then to go to the bathroom and my brother said in a concerned voice that we should call. I'd soaked through the pads and the towel. I wasn't even really thinking about myself at that point. I just didn't care about anything, honestly. I just thought, well, I'll have to clean the chair then if there's blood on it. He ended up calling for help for me. Honestly, my mind was so confused in the loss and the pain, I barely even acknowledged my brother had called for paramedics. When they got there, they took my vitals, which were okay, then my heart rate was a bit up. I didn't want to go to the hospital as I was just in so much pain and I just wanted to be alone and just to get through it. I just wanted it to be over. The paramedics asked to see the level of bleeding before they were comfortable letting me stay at home, so I begrudgingly got up to go to the bathroom to prepare to show them. At this point the cramps were at their most intense and I was just struggling to breathe through them. I sat on the toilet breathing hard and something just felt very wrong. I felt dizzy and sick all of a sudden from the pain. I crawled out of the toilet on my hands and knees into the hallway and I caught what came out of me in my hands and just looked down in shock. The little sack filled with fluid that holds the baby was still intact, whole, in the palm of my hands. All I thought was, no, this is where my baby is meant to grow. It's like I just didn't want to accept it had happened. I felt myself shaking uncontrollably, and the paramedics must have heard me as they came to me and just found me sobbing in the hallway. After seeing what I was holding and the amount of blood, they recommended I go into the hospital to be monitored. They put what I was holding into a plastic bag and my mum went to throw it away, but I begged her not to dare throw it away. Please don't throw away my baby. She really didn't want to upset me further, so she put it in the spare fridge wrapped up and told no one to look in there. How insane I sounded, but I just couldn't bear the thought of them going in the bin. They took me to the hospital and while there I passed out while they were taking my blood. I'm just really bad with needles and blood clearly, and when I came to they were wheeling me to a room with oxygen on my face. Passing out is really weird. It's like going to sleep. It's not upsetting or anything, but waking up somewhere unexpected just feels horrible, especially when you're in a hospital. I remember a lady was put in the room with me. I don't know if she was a patient advocate or something, but she stayed with me my whole visit until the doctor came down from the delivery unit. By this point the bleeding had slowed, thankfully, and when the doctor checked me she said my cervix was almost closed again. I was dehydrated, exhausted, just physically and mentally broken. I wanted to just go home, and thankfully they were okay with discharging me after not too long. I bled for 3 weeks after that. 3 weeks. It was like torture. I just desperately wanted it to be over. Every time I went to the bathroom, it was the reminder of the baby I'd lost. A few days later, after I got home, I decided that I wanted to bury them. I bought 2 string of heart plants, a hanging pot, and I buried them in there. This is over 2 years ago now, and those beautiful plants have thrived. If I don't cut them, they would grow to the floor from the ceiling height. I'm glad I have something beautiful and living as a representation of my lost baby. Burying them gave me a sense of closure, and I had another scan to make sure there was no retained tissue, and I was just expected to move on with my life. But it was so difficult. Everyone else moved on so much quicker than I did. I just kept thinking about them all the time. People didn't understand. It was only an early loss. It was so hard for me because I just didn't understand how other people could forget so quickly. My partner came over from Norway, and it was such a relief to have him here. It was his own kind of torture for him. He hated not being there with me during the loss of our baby. I can't even imagine how tough it was knowing what I was going through and that he just couldn't be there. I slowly recovered with the support of my family and my partner and friends, and we decided pretty quickly we weren't going to wait any longer to start our family. We realised then that pregnancy isn't guaranteed. The outcome is always unknown. A few months later, we got another positive test. I was overjoyed, but so deeply anxious. I was scared to get attached or get hopeful. I took a pregnancy test every single day, sometimes multiple tests, just to make sure I was still pregnant. I sent my partner in to buy 5, 6, 7 pregnancy tests at a time, so I had them at home. But something strange happened after a while. The test lines, they got lighter. And I feel like I knew from that point I was losing another pregnancy, another baby. At 6 weeks, I lost that pregnancy too. It was nowhere near as heavy as the last one, as I was earlier in the pregnancy, but my heart physically hurt from the pain of losing yet another pregnancy. This was my 3rd miscarriage. After that, the doctor said I could be referred to the Recurrent miscarriage clinic, but the waiting list was long. So we decided to just keep trying in the meanwhile, as the doctor said it was fine to do so. And I felt like by trying we were keeping our hope alive. And even before I got my next cycle, I got another positive test, and that pregnancy resulted in my first live birth, my beautiful firstborn son, who has just turned 2 years old and is the light of my life. Pregnancy after loss is its own kind of torture. For a long time, I felt really envious of women who had had these perfect, uneventful pregnancies. I was jealous of their unbridled joy and hope. Now, I feel really happy for them. I'm so glad people can have pregnancy untouched by pain and loss. But at the time, I really did feel quite jealous. For me, pregnancy, at times I felt paralysed by just the fear of losing my baby. How could I trust my body to keep this baby safe? I hated myself for something that I couldn't control. I had 3 scans in early pregnancy, and laying on that table waiting to hear my baby's heartbeat made me feel sick to my core. But thankfully, there was always a heartbeat ticking away. From 20 weeks onwards, feeling his movement was the most beautiful thing in the world, and pregnancy was horrendous and scary and ended in an emergency cesarean, but he was born safely, and that was the most important thing. When I fell pregnant with my second live-born son, the fear just reignited in me. I thought because I'd already had one live birth that it wouldn't be as bad, but it was almost worse because I already knew the joy of having a living child. How could I possibly have 2 healthy pregnancies in a row after 3 unexplained losses? But here he is. He's 4 months old now, healthy and happy, and I know how lucky I am to have my 2 boys. But there is always part of me that feels sad when I fill out them forms. They ask, how many children do you have? And I have to write 2, but no, to me, I will always have 5. If you've been affected by miscarriage, I encourage you to speak out to the ones you love about it. You don't have to forget and move on. It doesn't have to be your secret. I got therapy during my 4th pregnancy with my firstborn son to help me deal with the anxiety that taints pregnancy after loss. And if you're pregnant now, just remember that every pregnancy is different, and just because you have had 1 loss or multiple losses does not mean you're going to have another. Most importantly, let yourself hope. Let yourself love. Imagine your future with your little one, even if it makes you feel scared sometimes. That fear is only there because you've so much love to give. Don't let fear hold back your hope. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I hope you've enjoyed watching the process of this painting.